First of all, I would like to thank Flavius for this generous hospitality, and I would like to thank Aslan for the stress he put on me here. What am I talking about? I will try to summarize, I would say, the last 40 years within 40 minutes. So it will become a little bit stress for not only for me, for you as well, to follow in the thing. Okay, it's about beyond the drill. It's about why repetition is holding your players back. And I know this is already a little bit provocative. It's not provocative, it's reality. I'm sorry to say this in advance. During my journey, I had a couple of nice quotes which I want to share with you. And actually, this is part of my story as well. I was a very poor reader. I hated to read books. And finally, I found a quote from a German philosopher. And actually, I'm with this still. So if you read a lot of books, you just think with other people's head. And this is what I've heard a couple of times the last days. This guy said this, and this guy said this, and I was thinking of, okay, and what are you thinking? And actually this was already meant by Aslan, where he said, yeah, we want you to think by yourself. And it's not only about thinking, it's about taking over responsibility of your thinking and of your acts. Sorry? Yes? You should first think about the problem by yourself. When I was in India, I was listening to all those meditative guys, and they always told us, you need a master for learning this. Okay, after 2 days, my impatience ran away, and I asked them, okay, and who was the teacher for the first? And actually, it's the same in football. It's always the first who makes the big invention, and the others are just trying to copy. But have you ever seen that the copy is becoming better than the original? I never saw this. So it's about doing it by yourself. And this was one of the major, I would say, motivations which I had as a coach. I was introduced as a scientist, but to be honest, okay, actually, I was a high-performance athlete for more than 20 years. I did 7 years gymnastics, was in the state team in gymnastics. Then I was in the state team handball player. Then I injured my knees. Then I switched to decathlon. I was in the state team of decathlon. Then I switched to bobsleigh. I became German champion in bobsleighing. And after this, I developed already this theory. And I thought, before I apply this to my athletes, I have to try it by myself. So I learned karate as well. So I learned karate until the black belt. And I knew, okay, this is going to work. And now I can publish this. So it's the opposite. I experienced this already in the practice. And afterwards, I was looking for the theory to verify what we did before this. So after I verified the theory, I was a coach for more than 20 years. We were consulting the national team from the biomechanics as well for more than 25 years. And within a very short time, within 5 years, I had 3 German champions with this method. And one philosophy of mine was always, if you want to become extraordinary in your performance, you need extraordinary training. Which means when you only read textbooks, what everyone knows, then you just can believe in genetics. And this is not enough for me. So you need to know what the rest is training and then go the opposite side. Otherwise you will just flow with the mass. Okay, and the other thing what I learned in China, if you want to be unhappy, just compare. If I would give you $200, you'd, well, very great. But when I would tell you all the others get $500, you get frustrated. And it's just a simple example, but actually this is what's going on in our head all the time. Always comparing with an ideal, comparing with yesterday. How could it be? And we know from neuroscience that this is actually really hindering learning. And this is one advantage from children, why children learn that fast, because they don't do this. They are taught later in school to do this, but originally they don't do it. So I would like to start with a little experiment with you. It's getting difficult now. I will show you a group of symbols, and you have to replace this question mark here. Okay, Aslan, we can go for coffee until they find a solution. So, any suggestions? Oh, I see already 80% have frustration, mathematics. Oh, I was not good in school, but you were not good in school. Okay, someone knows already the solution. Silent. What's your suggestion? 1. Okay, it's like in school, just guess. No. Okay, it's one first guess. You have still 8 other numbers to guess, like the exam in high school. 11. Okay, you can go. Okay, 3. Other suggestions? 2. Okay, we come up there. Okay, any suggestion why it's 1? Can you explain? Yeah, okay. That's a classical response. What they are doing normally, they're just watching the right side. Okay, the 1 is missing, maybe the 2 as well. So go for this. And this is actually what science is doing as well. Forget about the rest. We just focus on the things which we know and build a model with this. A model is always a short version of the original. Okay, now you explained already 3. Can you explain? Why? I need Flavius.
He counted all the numbers. He counted all the numbers together, and the sum of the numbers.
This is 12, 14, 70. It's 20, 21.
Minus 19. It's 3. Yes, so it's 2 plus. He said that.
Okay, this is
2 plus 1. 2 plus 1.
2 plus 1. So yeah, okay.
21. 2 plus 1.
I never have heard this, but maybe it helps. It helps to you. First graders have much less problems to solve this than students in mathematics. I see you are all students of mathematics, especially John. No, 3 is correct, but why? No, the explanation is a little bit different. It's not about the numbers. I told you I will show you some symbols. It's because of wrong assumptions. And you made those symbols to numbers, and when you changed this assumption to numbers, you applied all your mathematical knowledge from school. Plus, minus, divided, square root, or sum, whatever. But you never went back to the original assumption. And why is it 3? It's about the number of surrounded areas. And this is why first graders can solve this, because they don't have any clue about mathematics. And this is what's going to happen all the time, that we are full of assumptions. The parents of my students are my enemies. No, it's not. It's the assumption of you. So keep this in mind, and all the models which we are dealing with are based on assumptions. Okay, a problem which is inherited to all the teachers or coaches or therapists as well. You get an athlete in this age, and you can do whatever you want in order to get, this is Serena Williams in her younger years, to get a world-class tennis player. And very often, they know, and we know this from GDR, from former GDR, East Germany, they knew all the steps which have been trained because of their diaries. And when I was in Leipzig professor, I was always asking those coaches, you knew all the steps from Schönleber. He was a European record holder for a long time for 400 meters. Why weren't you able to reproduce a second champion in this way? And the answer was, yeah, it was only for him. And then I figured out, okay, GDR, Soviet Union, it was the same. They had two kinds of diaries. It was diary one for the prime minister and sports minister, and then the other one was the real one. And the first one was published to the world in books. And they were always laughing about the other ones when they were trying to go for this kind of training. So the real training was completely different. Now, what's going to happen normally, they transfer only the methods from the adults to the younger ones, and what's the result out of this? It looks like this. It doesn't fit at all, nowhere. Now, when we look to those two stages in a little bit different point of view, I'm pretty sure you know a little bit about children, babies. Now, what are you doing when a child is repeating the same movement for 2 and more hours? Repeating, repeating, repeating. Okay, I would say you would bring the child to a neurologist. Something is going wrong here. So this is not normal. Now, when you see a tennis player repeating the same movement for 2 hours and more, then you call this professional. And I can tell you, there's no a big change in the brain. It's just an interpretation because of our assumptions. And what I very often hear is, okay, if we would teach the children how to learn correctly, they would be much better. No, forget it. If you look to classical motor learning theories, they would start with strength. So I see a baby, 200 gram, doing curls. After 6 months, they do squats. And then when they start to move, they swing the right leg, then they swing the right leg in this, and then they go like this. This is motor learning. And then you see very soon that those motor learning models were mainly for adults satisfying their own needs. It had nothing to do with reality. And this was actually one of my bases to look for the origins of this thing. And the origin has to do with learning in general. Now, learning in general is subject of a couple of disciplines. One discipline is pedagogy. We will go into this deeper very soon. Now, in pedagogy, when you go into the history of pedagogy, this is one of my subjects which I studied, you have to differentiate between pedagogy, andragogy, and geragogy. This is for children, this is for adults, and this is for elderly. And it's completely different in history. Now, when you look into the history, the reform pedagogy was actually, I would say, the contrast program for Enlightenment philosophy, where children were considered as little adults. And reform pedagogy was already 1762, some years ago. I don't think that you have experienced this age. It's really, the origin is there already, and the main idea of reform pedagogy was learner-oriented teaching. It was no more coming from outside. No, it's about learning from the child. The other part is teaching. And you see a lot of developments there, Montessori, Steiner, laboratory school, also John Dewey. He wrote a very nice book on educating democracy. I really can recommend to read this. Problem-based learning, constructivist, that was all done 100 years ago. Okay, another area, psychology and biology. Psychology and biology has these philosophies, okay, behaviorism, cognitivism. There you see already this exploratory and learning projects. Then also the constructivism, social learning theory. There are a lot of, I would say, inspirations where sports could learn from. And when you look to sports, then you mainly see the Soviet Union philosophy from Matveyev, and mainly it's about continuous training, fartlek, circuit training. It's mainly about metabolism. It's not about technique and these things. What you have mainly here is only repetition. And repetition is going back a couple of years, more years, and this is actually going back to the old Greeks. And also from the Italian area, from the Latin, this is what I was expecting here as well. Radical, the origin is from the Latin and means roots. It's about the basis. And when you translate this in a figurative sense, then it means fundamental. Okay, let's go back. Where is pedagogy coming from? Search for the origins. And what you see there, okay, it's coming from the Greek language. So it's the pais, it means child, and again means leading. But now a big difference. Andragogy, okay, this is mainly military training for adults. In old ancient Greece, the pedagogues were slaves who accompanied the boy, because only boys were allowed to go to school, on the way to school and gave instructions for proper behavior, only those slaves who were not fit for other works. These were pedagogues, guiding the rich people to school. And you see already school is something different. Now, school meant paidaion, which means teaching children. And teaching children is something different. It's what we see here. You see here the ways and things. It's school means is derived from skoleion, and this means spare time, leisure, conversation, places where conversation can take place. So it was already 2,500 years ago where they knew exactly how children have to be treated. It didn't change that much. And when you look to the history of brain science, then we know our brain didn't change that much during the last 20,000 years, at least. So you can assume there were some smart people there as well. And they were not distracted by daily smartphone and selfies. They had some other simulations. So pedagogy always educated children cognitively, social, affective, and morally. And this is, I would say, the responsibility of coaches as well. I had this yesterday in mind. When you think of how many of your athletes will make it to the professional level, it's, I would say, 1 out of 1 million. But you have to take over responsibility for the others as well. And there, it's important to teach the human rights. It's important to teach tolerance and all these other things. It's not only about the high performance thing. It's a very, very low probability to get the people there. And this is actually what I was kind of surprised or kind of disappointed when I read some literature about nonlinear pedagogy. I thought, what's going on now? Pedagogy was never linear. The children didn't behave differently 5,000, 10,000 years than today. It's mainly the mindset of the teacher. And when you have some researchers coming from military countries, then they know only andragogy, and when they discover pedagogy, oh, it's a surprise. But you should be careful. You first should be clear what exists already in order to have the claim that I discovered something new. I never have seen a child seeing the principle of a wheel and saying, I discovered the wheel the first. Be careful about this. And this is actually what happened already in the context of reform pedagogy. Those were 2 Austrians. They applied this already, this individual approach. And I looked to old books, 1925, and you can see already these methodical series. You have this material aid, you have this environmental, you have all these things already there. The same with biomechanics. it's supportive when you understand the principle. And it was always about finding an individual beginning for the level of the athlete. It was never about, okay, everyone is the same. The problem was, okay, they start on different levels, but then you had to follow the same steps. And this is what I would say, meanwhile, okay, we can look this in a different way. And the same happened actually to small-sided games. This is a very old story. I was really surprised because I was taught already with these games, but with other terms. And what you see in these old books from 1978, they have already all these games. And I think we don't need to reinvent the wheel. Just look there and think about, okay, how can we continue? We don't need to repeat this all the time. The same with endurance thing. You see very nicely, okay, there's a football, small-sided games, and then they say, okay, you can train endurance by enlarging the field. I would say everyone knows this. 2 years ago, I read an article. They compared small-sided games, 10 meters pitch size, 5 against 5. And then they had the same 5 against 5 with 50 times 40 meters. And the result was, in the second case, they were more training endurance. Well, great. I think a little bit of logic would have been enough. You wouldn't have need 100,000 of investment to find this. Here you have the same with training, team cooperation. This is what I liked very much this morning when Paul demonstrated this already. So this existed already for a very long time. And you have all these principles. Actually, I wanted to show this here. Okay, with this game series. In the beginning, there was the same development. They only wanted to play to have a contrast to technical-based training. But very soon it turned out that only playing games is too boring. What would you think about playing 5 times a week, 2 times a day? This would be boring by a longer time. It's always, our brain needs some new stimuli, otherwise it's getting crazy. So they mix this up, okay, there's some game, and then you can do some technical exercise, game, technical exercise. You can mix the things up. And actually, I'm always wondering, why are we restricting only to games when we have all the possibilities? It's not necessary. So they already suggested, okay, you can vary a number of teams, team members, the pitch size, form, ground, rules, play device, etc. And Carl Newell, 1986, he just classified those things into the 3 elements: task, environment, and individual. And then the next group came and turned it upside down and discovered all the things which were grouped before. Sorry, I don't understand science, or something's going wrong here, because I'm coming from physics, and in physics it was always about reducing, and at the end you have 4 forces, and from 4 forces you can derive everything. And now it's about, okay, do everything. The same with the specificity and generality. This is a problem I found 1956, the first time, but for sure it was developed earlier, and it was all time the question, how similar should the exercises be to have a benefit for the target exercise? It's always the same question. And this was covered with this topic. Now, what I've heard the last days a couple of times about football representativeness. I constructed this figure yesterday, sitting beside Aslan. He saw this. Okay, when you start with 11 against 11 is the target game. Okay, you decompose this game down to 10 against 10 or 5 against 5 plus goalkeeper, or a different variation, 5 against 5, 5 against 4, and so on, going deeper. And then you have 1 against 1, 1 against 1 plus goalkeeper, or tripling with defender or without defender, or you do goal shooting and sprinting. Okay, what's happening? The representativeness, until which level you decide that it's representative. Is it here, or is it here? And it's only a first course overview. So it's an arbitrary thing, but as soon as you say, okay, the limit is here, actually you're neglecting the possibilities of all the other exercises which are there. You're restricting yourself, you're restricting your, I would say, richness of possibilities. And what's happening, okay, the lower you come here, the less representative are the exercises. But what's a very important point, and Paul mentioned this morning already, is that it's according to information processing per time. So little children would never cope with these correctly. It's too much for them. And this is why normally a physical long-term education starts with you need to get control over your body, which means you should do some gymnastics, ballet, or especially you need to train the vestibular organ. I was asking a couple of coaches here, did you train your football players already a handstand? No, it's not needed. Yeah, but it's training the vestibular organ much better. And we know when you do a fast movement to the left, then the vestibular organ starts to move, and this is shutting down the muscles for half a second, which gives you an enormous disadvantage. Now when I'm not training, okay, I suggested before the pass is coming, I just do a twist and then I take the ball. Or I take a roll, and then I'm training the vestibular organ, and then I can stay there and can do every movement fully under control. But if I stop representativeness here, no, twist is not there, so we don't train it. You need to know, and still, I would say, those people were not stupid who developed those things. They had some reason, but you need to understand the reason. Okay, so what's happening when you go 13 against 13? This is what I asked Barcelona. Why don't you train 15 against 15? In the beginning, they said as well, this is not our game. Said, yes, but it's putting stress on the system, and every 100-meter sprinter knows we need to run 120, go over the thing. And this is, meanwhile, I think well known in the internet, my saying is, training has to be that hard that competition will be the relaxation. So you need to go there as well over this. And this is what I saw in Barcelona before. They have a big game Friday afternoon. They go into the penalty zone, cut the grass down to 1 centimeter, make it wet, and then they play 11 against 11 with one contact. When I saw this the first time, I was not able to follow by vision. And in this time, Messi and Neymar, they were already able to do some tricks with one contact. And there I saw the difference. Putting the people under stress, and then in the weekend, it's relaxation for them. And this is, what's happening. Okay, representativeness is going down, but it's a necessary thing for information processing. Information processing is going over this, and this is what I asked yesterday. The first group, I don't know, first or second group, I was asking the people around me, I would say they are not good chess players, because a chess player is always thinking 5 moves ahead. And what you saw there in those players, they were just concentrated, okay, I need to receive the ball, control the ball, and then I can look. And what you saw this morning, before they receive the ball, they always look, where's the next? And then I can immediately move on. And then the others actually should act the same. Okay, when he's passing over there, I need to go there in order to offer the possibility for a pass. And this is why I think playing chess, it doesn't need to be the long chess, it could be the short 5-minute chess, where you really need to, but thinking ahead a little bit. And a very similar thing is with respect to affordances. When you go to, it's now almost 200 years ago, 1825, the inventor of kindergarten said already, only in an enriched environment, a child will develop very healthy. Enriched environment, and this is exactly offered now from some other approaches with different words. And when you look to those statements, 200 years ago, freedom with guidance, unity, connectedness, and community, engaging with nature, learning through you simply can copy this and you see a lot of so-called new approaches. No, it's nothing new. And I would say it's wasting time. No, when you read this, then you can go beyond this. And this is actually what I read all the things before I came up with the differential learning thing. And this is what I want to go there now. This morning, I just included this. I'm sorry for the interpreter. I very often hear this quote, repetition without repetition. This quote has been stated by Bernstein 1935, 90 years ago. It has been translated into English 1967. Everyone knew this, but I didn't see any consequences. Nothing happened with this until 2020. All of a sudden, it was reinterpreted. And it was exactly reinterpreted in a way how differential learning was telling this about 20 years before. Repetition without repetition. And the same, I talked to Carl Newell. We had him as a keynote lecture in 2015. He classified the existing approaches by constraints. And he mentioned this as well. But he said it by himself. Yes, we didn't see the possibility. Because in 1986, they had 3 other theories, and they were fighting with this, and they didn't know how to continue. And I was coming from outside, from biomechanics. I had really no clue about these other things. Yeah, I didn't know that it was forbidden to think about this. I just did it. Okay, and this is what recently was published by Mark Williams. He is editor-in-chief from New Movement Science, which is one of the most prestigious papers in our area. He said, the constraints-based approach is a merely descriptive framework. It's a philosophical approach, and I was talking yesterday to Debbie. The basis of CLA is opinion papers. The facts are missing. And one criteria for science is to make predictions which can be tested. And this hasn't been the case until now. Okay, now coming to our approach, it's about developing critical thinkers. There are 2 activities necessary for critical thinking to occur. One is identifying and challenging the assumptions underlying a person's beliefs and actions. If you go down, what is your assumption? Test them and challenge them. Are they correct? Okay, then try to build up the system again with these assumptions. If not, try to build up the system with other assumptions. And this is what I did with sports, and it's also philosophically based by Derrida. It's called deconstructing assumption. So what are the classical assumptions for effective training? The first assumption was a role model exists independent of person and time. So for everyone, this movement is the best. Okay, I would say, when I take off my glass, I would say, yes, everyone looks like this. Or, I think you know the other saying, if you only have a hammer, everything looks like a nail. The second assumption is the role model can be achieved by copy and repetition. And this is what you actually see also in history, that this model is actually coming from the old Roman soldiers. The old Roman soldiers, they had to walk in this turtle, the shields around, and then you have to have the same step length. But when you have different body height, the first row is walking like this, and the last row is walking like this. Only the middle row has a convenient step length. And this is the principle of our schools and principle of our sports. Everyone is the same. No, it's not. So we challenge this. First, we did a couple of studies on high-performance athletes. In javelin throwing, we analyzed all the world-class javelin throwers. We found already indications, but then we thought maybe in high-performance sports, they don't have enough repetitions. This is why we moved to gait analysis. So we analyzed gait. This is a classical model. They walk over a force platform. Don't worry, they don't have to take a diet. It's just a model. And then you see the vertical forces here. but we not only measure the vertical force here, but also the horizontal force. The green force is moving in this direction. So first I push the floor against this wall, and then when I cross the middle, then I push the floor against this wall. Blue one is to the left and right. And what you see from 400 gait, from 20 people, there is no identical repetition. And they were about 35 to 40 years, which means they had millions of repetitions. And even though no identical repetition was there. I'm taking a short break. Maybe you start to think about this. When this never appears again, why am I repeating all the time? And what part of our training is preparing us for the new part? It will never happen again. Don't think about split milk. Don't try to collect split milk. So we applied already 2002. This was the first study. This with artificial neural nets, so AI. We exploited this, and we very soon could identify a person by 100% just by one ground contact. It's like a fingerprint. And not only this, by looking at those data, we were able to identify their emotions, we were able to identify their fatigue, and we were able to identify what kind of music they were listening to. It's modifying our gait pattern. And now tell me any athlete who has at least those situations constant. Emotions are always changing. Fatigue is always changing. I have something different in mind. It's changing my whole pattern. But we repeat the same. Okay, so what we found as well there, and this was already some hint to my differential learning thing, that noise contained the most information about the individual. That they are walking, I don't need a signal. That they are playing football, you know this already. But it's about the little part, it's about the differences, which are giving you the potential for progress. Come on. Okay, so we can say, role model, forget it. We don't have this. It's not independent of person, and it's not independent of time. And now when we look to the second condition, assumption, the role model can be achieved. This is what we tested again with the same situation, but now we wanted to look for the sustainability. We asked the patient, the subjects to come to the laboratory 8 days in a row, and they just had to walk over the force platform without any intervention. Every day the same time. They just walked over the thing. So for 8 days in a row, and then we changed the time scale and said, okay, let's look what's happening within 1 day without any intervention. 10 minutes break, 30 minutes break, 10 minutes, etc. And I will sum it up here. What you see here already, this day 1 and day 7, you see already there is a difference. And the pattern recognition resulted in 100% person identification. And also, in 8-day classification means 95% we could say which day it was. Just to compare, in 8 days, it's 1 divided by 8. This would be the chance rate, 12.5. So when you just guess, you get about this, but we had 95%. So after 1 day, the gait pattern, to our point of view, has changed already by 95%. So our system is changing all the time. But it's always within the individual possibilities. And then we looked to the same day, and you see those are just different 3 sessions. I think it was 1, 5, and 7. You see already the differences here. And then we see after 30 minutes here, our gait pattern has changed already by 85% without any intervention. And this is actual research at the moment because we are looking whether we can use this for determining our interventions, for adjusting our interventions. So when we see that the system is shifting faster away, then it's easier to change something than when it's not shifting that fast. So we saw, forget it about, okay, you can repeat something. It's never the same, and it will be never the same. And this is actually what we know from physics. It's the arrow of time. You cannot go back. It's one direction. The most people experience this during puberty, and some of us experience this in elderly. Okay, my body's changing all the time. But what we saw is it's changing in normal adults, 20 years old. It's the same. It's not that fast, but one consequence of this is actually that the older you are and the more you're changing, the more you should vary in your movements. And this is actually what children know, because children, they grow up to 14 centimeters a year, which means what they are learning in January is no more valid in December. The whole biomechanics, the whole control has changed. And this is why they don't like repetition. But when they are repeating, they still have enough noise to adjust, because the body is changing all the time. The body is providing the variation, not the environment. So learning is not only individual, but also situated. And this is really most recent research where we're looking for how sensitive are those things. And I just talked to John. My actual research is going on the influence of Earth magnetic field on our changes. Okay, now when we came up with this, okay, 2 assumptions are destroyed, finish. No, for me it's, and I talked to a couple of your colleagues here, don't complain, just look for a solution. And this is what we did on the search for adequate models. And yes, okay, I was a physicist and neurophysiologist at this time. We were looking for this, and I found some approaches in system dynamics. Physics of this a little bit more in neurophysiology, but we can talk about this in the next meeting. And this reminded me again to children. When you display learning rate against age, then we know no other system which is more effective learning than children during the first 2 years. And one characteristic of those children is they don't listen to the parents. Don't tell this to your children. And don't listen to me. So we see learning rate is the highest until the 2nd year. Then normally daycare starts, then primary school starts. And to be honest, what did you learn after your 10th year of age? You knew how to write, you knew how to read, and you knew how to calculate. And I can tell you from physics, calculation is just a sum of these procedures. It's not that big. Okay, some of you will learn to smoke and learn to drive a car, but actually the main things are done. And what's happening in this school thing is, okay, you have to sit there silent. Don't move. And for me, meanwhile, I would translate, stay as stupid as I am. If you don't move, you don't learn. Why are you sitting here? Maybe you have seen why I was always standing in the back and I was always moving. Okay. Maybe today I would get some Ritalin to get rid of this, but okay. So actually my interest was, instead of teaching the children anything, we should study them. What are they doing that learning is that successful? And we saw a couple of differences already in the neurological area, but one major criteria in systems dynamic, and this is what you see in children as well, that they don't consider a system as a line. This is your status, and afterwards you have another status. They are considering the fluctuations as an essential part of the system. The fluctuation is important. It's no more noise which has to be removed. No, it's an essential element for us. And what they studied, what they found very, very soon, that before you switch from one stability to another stability, you have to pass an instability. And I think the most of you know this, okay, when you are introducing a new technique, the system is getting unstable, and you are hopefully, okay, next year you will be more stable. Okay, everyone knows this, but now the physicists came, and they said, okay, let's look at the structure of this. What is the characteristics of this? Why are they calling this stability? Stability, okay, this is actually what is meant by differential training, that it's about the subsequent differences. We'll come to this shortly. Stability means when a system is very stable, then I need a lot of energy to change the state. Okay, may I just ask you to come up here? Can you go into a stable position? No, it's not. No, it's not. Stable. No, he's not a martial art guy. Have you ever seen martial art? No. Okay, go in this position. Okay, and now I need a lot of energy to change something. Now, when he's standing on one leg, okay, it's gone. It's very easy. Thank you. Give him a... So this is the characteristics of the difference of stability and instability, which means instability, you need only a small amount of energy to change the system. And now we transfer this to learning. Learning is nothing else. In the beginning, you have a stable state. Hopefully, at the end, you have the same. And then we have to make the system unstable, because then it's easier for them to learn. And what is associated with instability? Instability means increase of fluctuations. Taking a break, maybe you see already the connection to differential training. Every instability, for me, is a sign that in this area the system can learn. When it's stable, forget it, wasting energy. I have to look for the instability, and now you have to translate the language. For us, it's an instability. For the most of you, it's an error. What are you doing with an error? Don't do it. You are suppressing this. You want to have immediate stability. No. This is what we do. Increase the instability. We call this intermittency, in order to make the system unstable. And when the system is unstable, then it's easy to move the system in a certain direction. And in this case, it was the advantage. We don't know what's going to happen, and this is called real self-organization. This is giving diffuse energy into the system, and this is what I always told to my athletes. I don't know what is good for you, but I can help you that we will find it together. And actually, you know all the things. It's about, I have to remove the obstacles. It's a completely different understanding, I would say. Thanks, John. I like to drink some champagne. Okay, now the symbol, mechanical symbol for instability is this here. Every little fluctuation immediately moves the system into another state. And this is what we applied then. So we only can learn from differences. And the reason for this is, may I just have this microphone? I don't want to communicate with you now in stereo. No, it's a difficult task now for you. Can you watch this microphone with your right eye? Only with the right eye. You have to close one eye. Sorry. Okay, now you do the same with the left eye. And when you are advanced, you switch between left and right. Boom, 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 boom. And then you see that the microphone is shifting a little bit. Okay, and thanks. Our brain is using this difference to measure the distance. Close one eye. Okay, now you take the finger and you try to meet this finger. Go. No chance. And this is what you see very often with people who have only one eye. When they want to pour coffee in a cup, they have a big problem because you need both eyes. So our brain is always using differences. It's a cognitive thing. By the way, it's the same. Okay, here you have the loudspeaker. But normally, when I'm standing left in front of you, my sound is first reaching your left ear, and shortly after this, it's the right ear. And the time difference is telling you I'm standing left in front of you. And by the way, this is the reason why the new loudspeaker systems have only one subwoofer, the bass. Have you ever thought about why? Because the wavelength of a bass is longer than the distance of the ear. This is why you cannot locate the loudspeaker. So it doesn't matter where it's placed. Simply physiology, but our body is always using differences for gaining information. And I would say we didn't take advantage of this in no learning process. Okay, and this is how we started. You see already this is 2003. This were one of the first, no, it was actually the fifth study. At this time, Keith Davids, they had no clue about practical consequences. And this is one of the videos. Here it's variation in the standing leg for the differential group. They were standing behind this, then they were standing way to the left, and it was a soft standing leg. Then it was way behind the ball, way before the ball, way beside the ball. So actually, they mainly trained all the arrows. And for us, it's not an error. For us, it's fluctuation. It will happen sometime. But when you never have exercised this, you never know how to cope with this. So again, no repetition and no correction. And again, going back to children. Who has children? Everyone, okay. Have you taught your child or your children how to walk? Touch down with the heel. Swing the arm. No, you don't do it. You have to crawl on the elbow. No. They learn it without listening to you. And they learn much faster. And this we know from neurology. As soon as you include language, the cortex is activated. And when the cortex is included, then it's getting slow. Movement is coordinated much deeper. And it's much faster. Cortex is important for planning in whatever, future and higher things, but not for movement. And variations in the approach was just lifting up two arms or one arm, and you see already a huge effect on this. Jumping on one leg, heels up here, and then I think it was hopping, left, left, right, right, right. And then it was sidestep, and then it was crossover. So those were just two exercises. We had a couple of exercises, and really the intervention lasted about 6 weeks, only twice a week, 20 minutes. So we had, in some, I would say, about 350 different exercises. So you could combine this. So go across and then move downwards and kick with the heel. When you are able to find all the combinations of these 5 criteria for the next 10 years, you will be good. And it's only a course estimation. Okay, and then we added the variations of the ball. I think the most, this one was new for me at that time, where we fixed a weight beside the ball, which made it really very erratic. And this forced the athletes really to focus until the end, to be flexible until the end. And not, okay, the ball is there, so I can stop it there. No, it's until the end. And we did the same with this handball. a water balloon in another balloon, and the ball is coming like this. But little children are learning much better to catch a ball in this way than when you repeat the things all the time in a stable situation. They stay flexible. Okay, and the result was, okay, the traditional group, they learned a little bit, but the differential group learned much more. And this is 6 weeks intervention, and this is 1 year retention. By the way, this here is learning, this here is only acquisition. This is what we call in school bulimic learning. 4 weeks in, 1 time out for exam, and then it's gone. What do you remember from your high school exam? Then you know what you have learned. Okay. So the next step was to enlarge the theory related to this instability. And the instability is, again, the difference between 2 subsequent exercises. And this is, yes, related to my history as a physicist, where you have this differential and integral calculus. Now, the differences can be caused in 2 ways. One way is the sequential diversity of the exercise, which is given by the coach, and the athlete's response on this exercise. Those are 2 different things. And we call them noise A and noise B, and the relationship of both displayed against the learning rate included, or gave us the possibility to include all the learning theories. Which meant, here in the beginning, how we call this stochastic resonance, it's 2 stochastic signals adjusting to each other, but the actual step was repetition without repetition means that you always have some differences in it, which actually meant also when you are repeating, you learned by the differences. But the differences are way too small to learn effectively. So we believe it was repetition, but actually it was not the repetition. It was the deviation of the repetition which made us learn. And when you now try to avoid errors, you avoid learning. And then you have the other approaches. Then you see historically, methodical series of exercise, variability of practice, context and interference, they always increase the noise in the system. More variability, as Aslan mentioned this morning. It's more variability. But what we knew, when it's getting too much noise, then it's not good. So we knew for shot putter, it's not good for him to go swimming and to go bicycle riding, although it would have increased the noise. So we knew there is an optimum. But what we knew as well is, this is the reason why we have a dotted line on top. It doesn't mean, okay, in this case, yes, this figure was differential learning, the maximum noise. But this actually meant something different, that this could change. But another positive aspect of this is that now we could explain why children are learning from repetitions. Normally, children have too much noise, and they learn from repetition because those repetitions are large enough to learn. But the longer you are in our school system, the smaller the fluctuations become, and the less you learn. And then you see the problem why elderly don't learn that much, because they still believe our system from school was good, so it should be good now. No, it's the opposite. And this is exactly what we observe. When we apply differential learning in elderly, we get the same learning rates as in children. You need to vary much more. We had one group learning Argentinian tango. The people are older than 70 years old. Within 4 weeks, they got the equilibrium ability from average 35-year-olds, just by learning Argentinian tango. And this is nothing else than putting noise on the equilibrium. And I knew this from China, that when you do Tai Chi movement, you very often have this single leg stance and different rhythm and all the things. Okay, now what this meant here, this is the reason why I recently constructed this new figure. This is shown in this figure, which meant, okay, it could be, here you have the individual or situated condition. It could be sometimes repetition is the best for you, but then it could be sometimes it's contextual interference or differential learning. It's dependent on, and this is what we don't know, dependent on your daily situation, it's dependent on your emotion, it's dependent on whatever. And this is actually, I would like to encourage you to do those experiments by yourself. And then report this to me, and then we can adjust our theory. But what we know is, for learning, we need a certain amount of information. This was too fast. We only when we have an optimum noise, we learn optimally. Now, when you stay all the time with repetitions, we see the method is no more responding. And this is the most recent research which we are trying to publish at the moment. What we find there is that you get, I would say, used to all the methods, which meant, and this is what I did with my athlete as well, when we did 5 months of differential training, I had one block of repetition. In the beginning, my athletes were, are you sick, or do you have fever, or what's going on here? No, it's important to make the system sensitive again for the variation. And this is the higher understanding. It's variation of the variation. This is what we see also in brain science. And this was the next question. Okay, how does the brain respond on this? Neurological. So we were not looking only for a black box here, as has been done from previous studies. So we derive all these electric currency from the brain. And in order to get a structure out of this, we normally we apply Fourier analysis. Fourier analysis is nothing else than a frequency analysis, and you all know this, but you're not aware of this. This is all the time, not at the moment, but when it's raining and you see a rainbow is nothing else than a frequency analysis, where white light is separated into blue, green, yellow, red. It's a frequency analysis. And this can be done mathematically, and in brain science, this is divided into 5 frequency bands. So normally when you are awake, like he's at the moment, now it's getting more gamma, but when he's awake, it's better. When it's getting stress, you want me to jump on you? Oh, you see the colors coming, and then it's gamma. And gamma is stress, and gamma stress is very local, and this has an enormous consequence. But when you are a little bit more relaxed, like the guy in the back, then it's alpha, and when you are deeply relaxed, then it's theta, and when you are in a deep sleep, then you are in the delta frequency area. Now, when you're producing gamma waves, you cannot produce those. The problem is, when you have a smartphone beside the bed, you are producing gamma waves. And this is blocking your delta wave production. But the delta wave production you need for activating the immune system. And this is why we see this when you have the smartphone for a longer time beside the bed, they get sick. The immune system is getting weaker. So please, no electricity in the bedroom. We need this for recovery. But related to our problem here, the most important frequencies for learning are those 2 frequencies, alpha and theta. So next time when you fall asleep, you can tell the teacher, I'm learning. But you first need to learn, and then you can sleep. And this is actually what children are doing. And now another very interesting point is, children until the 5th year of age know only those frequencies. They don't have beta and gamma. And this is most probably the reason why they learn that much. And what has been told us in school, focus, be concentrated. This is activating beta and gamma, which means don't learn. So I will keep my job, because then you need me forever, because you don't learn, and I have an excuse. Parallels for coaches are just by coincidence. So this is what we tested then in a very simple badminton task. So the baseline normally looks like they are sitting in front of a white wall, so they have no stimuli, they are deeply relaxed, and we look for the brain activation, and you see that they were relaxed. Theta power is quite strong. Here are the frequencies for memory. Alpha is deeply, no beta and no gamma. They have no stress, so it's okay. Now they did 10-15 minutes badminton serve repetition. And red means high activated, blue means no activation. And then you see, after 10 minutes, the brain is switched off. Repetition. I see already what's going on here. Okay, then we did contextual interference. Contextual interference is switching between forehand and backhand all the time. Forehand, backhand. And what we see is a higher activation down here in the beta and gamma area, stress. Okay, they try to remember what did I wrong the last time and what do I have to change there, etc. Stress for them. Now, gradual differential learning meant variance in the left ankle, right ankle, left knee, right knee, left hip. So approximately they knew what will be next. So decreasing surprise. And then we see already a shift towards theta and alpha power, which is needed for learning. And then we go to chaotic differential learning, which meant variation on the right elbow, variation on the left hip, variation. So it was always a surprise. They never knew what will be next. And what happened? We have an even stronger activation in this field, but, and this was a real surprise for us as well, also in the beta and gamma area. And to be honest, this was a huge positive surprise for us, because in parallel we did some monk studies with Chinese monks, and we could see these kind of activations only in monks which had 20 years experience in meditation. And we got this after 10 minutes. Brain is completely activated. Normally beginners in meditation, they only have like this here, and only in the highest state you get the other thing. And this is one reason why, meanwhile, in China, they switched the Qigong learning also to differential Qigong learning. They get much faster into these deeper brain states. So we saw, actually, yeah, it works on the neurological level as well. And I told some of you, yesterday I just discovered a new publication, just published yesterday, and it was about the cerebellum, and they really wrote in the abstract already, this was a verification for differential learning. So, okay, when other people are verifying what we have predicted 20 years ago, it cannot be that wrong. Okay, now in our case, yes, we consider meanwhile differential learning as switching on the brain activity. And this is most probably the reason why all these learning things are happening. But you can imagine already, this was not the end of this system. When we are able to produce these brain waves, can we take advantage of this in another area? So preparing the brain for learning something different. And this is what we did in this study, in mathematics. One group, before mathematics lesson, they did normal rope skipping. And the other group, they did differential rope skipping on the heel, on the step, on left, on right, forward, backward, and this. And no stress. If you stop, just continue. Don't care. 3 times 1 minute before mathematics lessons. They did this for about 4 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 times per week, only 3 minutes per day. And afterwards, they did a mathematics test, and the result was differential group learned highly significant better mathematics than the other group. Then we did the same afterwards. So rope skipping afterwards, because this is what we know from little children. When it's getting too much for the brain, they fall asleep. And by the way, this is the reason why children sleep up to 16 hours a day. This is necessary for learning. Sleeping is very, very important. We know a couple of other studies in this case. And it happens the same. And yes, I can be honest, it's nothing new. Because when I learned martial arts, karate, I went there, okay, let's fight. Said, no, 5 minutes meditation. Then you're allowed to train, and then, okay, let's take a shot. No, 5 minutes meditation. So what you're doing before and after training session is of same importance as what you do in the session. And this is nothing new. Martial arts is teaching this for a very long time. So, coming to the end, we wanted to transfer this to game tactics. Okay, we were looking for a football team, but they are very hard to be convinced. So we tried it with basketball. And what we did there, and this could have been an idea for the practical session from yesterday, they played 3 minutes, 1 against 3, 1 minute break, 1 against 2, 1 minute break. So always changing the numbers, overload or underload, whatever. No information what they have to do. But afterwards they were checked with a GPS system, and within 4 weeks they moved like the adults without telling them what's important. This is self-organization. It's not okay, you can do whatever you do and do it by yourself. No, this is actually, I meant this yesterday already, this is nothing else than a laissez-faire teaching style. This is different than self-organization. Self-organization is a physics term, and transferring this to this area means I want to impress the people with terms which they don't know what's the content. No, it's laissez-faire teaching style, or modern language, hands-off, but it's much older than the thing. Laissez-faire teaching style, and here it's about self-organization. Putting noise into the system, we don't know what's going to happen, but it will find the structure by itself. So we saw this, and in parallel we had a couple of other studies on creativity, where it improved creativity as well. They had much more solutions to solve the problem. It's still ongoing research, and yes, I would say I still have ideas for the next 100 years what to do in research. But actually, I want you to do the experiments by yourself. Don't listen to me, because I'm pretty sure that you know much more about your field, and it's about how to connect these things. But again, no risk, no fun. Okay. Computers done, yeah. Okay, these are some other studies. You will get this. These were just ideas, because yesterday I was asked very often. This is what we suggested already 2005 to Hoffenheim and Tuchel and all these guys. So you can say, this is the taboo zone. No one is allowed to play there. You can do the same here. This is the taboo zone. You can give them here, it's only allowed to play. This is a special task. In this areas, you have to do a certain task. And when the ball possession is changing, then you have to change the task. It's always in order to overload the system, so it's easy for them to compete afterwards. Challenge the system all the time. And those ideas were spread far before they came up with this challenge point thing. This challenge point thing was actually old stuff from information theory in the 60s. Now, when you go to the whole game, then you can vary in the width, position the defense players like this. and they realize it's a problem to defend in this way. And this is constructing situations where they immediately can feel it. You don't have to tell it to them. Challenge them. Proceeding forward, backwards, or you have here just a couple of examples. You can vary the depths, the distances between this different lines, and you also can vary both. And this is actually what's happening all the time in game. You never see those clear alignments. And the same, you can switch, and this is what Togel did. Within a game, you can switch between all those systems. And this is what we did in handball. Whistle, and you have to switch between 6-0, 5-1, 4-2, or 3-3. And it's simply to be unpredictable for the opponent. And this is your advantage, because you are in the offense situation. But then it's getting interesting. How can I confuse the offense with my defense? How can I switch this? And then it's getting interesting for me. Okay. Coming to the end. Brain states can be changed by means of certain types of movement. So, and this is a big advantage, I would say, of all the sports coaches. We have the possibility to change something in the brain. For language learning, for mathematics learning, we already apply this in front of management meetings. They become much more creative when they are in this state. Training should be that complicated that competition becomes relaxation. This is a basketball field in Munich. This was an artwork where you see all those hills and mountains and things. My saying was all the time, when you're able to play their basketball, the normal court will be boring. Meanwhile, I saw this in Scandinavia. And if this is not enough, you can do it like this. Even more, take-home message, nothing. What's going on now? Are you awake now again? No, because I'm convinced that you know already everything. My task is to remove your obstacles. And this is meant by this nice story, which I have heard in India. A father went to the zoo with the son. And he saw a huge elephant fixed with a little rope and a small rod. And the son asked the father, why is he standing there? Because in our forest, they're carrying big stones, big trees, and whatever. The father explained, yes, but when the elephant was born, they were immediately fixed. They tried it once, they tried it twice, and then they gave up. It's about you to find the rope from your childhood, which is slowing you down. If you are able to remove this rope, you will be able to do this. And this is, when it doesn't feel right, go left. I think I'm running out of time now. Thank you very much for your differential thoughts.